Welcome back to Real Estate with Mariah and Spenc. Thanks for hanging out with us this week. We are answering a viewer question today, and that is, I have been seeing a lot of homes lately that are listed on the market that say, sale is contingent upon successful closing of seller's replacement property. And so today we're going to explain what that means and talk a little bit about what that looks like from the perspective of the home buyer making an offer on a home that says that. I know this conversation could very easily go into sharing like how to buy and sell a house at the same time, having a contingency, like that is a whole other topic. We have a whole different show we'll do on that soon, and we'll really break that down as well. But this is just from the perspective of the buyer that's out shopping, you're house hunting, you're looking at houses, and you see that and you're like, what does that even mean?
Okay.
What's it going to look like?
Thanks for clarifying that. I could have just
two different things.
I could have walked down a rabbit hole and kept talking for about 10 more minutes on a topic that really is unnecessary. So I have been prompted with the same exact question, though, not from you guys, our online audience, but from an actual client of ours, that I was currently working with, buyers, obviously, and on Zillow especially, it's prompted very differently, and usually it says there's a contingency, yet the home still says active. And so the contingency is marked in the description of the home, but online it's showing up as active still. And that's just how they do it. That's how they advertise MLS system listings. And that is a very confusing question. And that's usually been why this question has been prompted to me on showings, but also on phone calls asking, hey, is this home available? And then what does it actually mean that there is a contingency on this property?
Right. So what I would tell a buyer, I guess, is that basically that just means that this seller, they're selling their home, they put it on the market, they happen to be selling a home, but they also need to buy one. They haven't found their home yet, which is super common because most people need the proceeds of the home that they're selling, or at least, it's very common to need some of the proceeds from the home that you're selling to put down on the next home that you're buying. And so it's very common for buyers or for sellers who are selling their home to not quite have their replacement property lined up. And so basically putting that in the listing is the listing agent's job of ensuring that any buyers that make an offer up front know that they're going to have to be working with these sellers on timeline. So that could mean a few different things. It could mean that these sellers have already found a property and they made an offer and they're in escrow, and it just is contingent on them closing because they need to close on both homes at the same time, if that makes sense. Or it could mean that they don't even know where they're going yet. They have no offers yet, on any homes that they want to buy. And so for you as the buyer, it just means, just a heads up, be willing to be a little bit flexible if needed with timelines, because they might need a little bit more time than they thought if there's a hiccup in their transaction.
So the word contingency, basically whenever you see that word, that just means there has to be a performance made in order to do something. So a contingency, for instance, could be the inspection period. The inspections have to be performed in order for that contingency to be removed and remove the inspection period. State to state, sometimes the verbiage is different. Here in Oregon, I don't necessarily treat an inspection period as a contingency. I'll be on the phone with another agent across states, and they'll say the word contingency, and so I relate it to a task to be performed in order to move forward. And that's how simply I would interpret that word contingency, whether it's on the buyers to perform or the sellers to perform. Mariah, she was mentioning, my property is available and contingent upon me finding my replacement property on the seller side. The same thing applies, though, for the buyers that submit offers. So sometimes when we're viewing these listings online, there will be the contingent right to purchase, or contingent right to purchase, and that generally means a buyer has an offer submitted on that particular property, but in order to purchase, they have to sell their property. Okay, so there's the buyer side of contingencies, and then there's seller sides of contingencies. But usually that just means there has to be performance made in order to move forward on something, a part of the real estate transaction. A lot of people ask me, and this is a good segue though, as to what we do as realtors. as to, Spencer, I'm hiring you to do this job. What are you actually doing for me? Because I feel like I'm paying you a lot of money at the end of closing. And a lot of our job is to organize, situate, communicate, and get through these contingencies. The inspection period, the turning in of earnest money, the organizing of appraisal, the communication between lenders, title. All of these things are a contingency, a hinder to the closing of an escrow, a closing of a transaction, a closing of your property needing to sell in order to get paid at the end of the day. And so that's simply put like a responsibility as to checking the box for us to perform if we are representing you in any transaction, whether it's the buyer or the seller.
Right. Absolutely. So thinking from a buyer's perspective, or speaking to home buyers right now, if they probably would want to know this, how often are we seeing listings right now? Are you seeing this a lot where you see the listings say the seller, it's contingent on them finding a replacement property?
Over the last year and a half, seriously, on a lot of my listing descriptions that I've been putting out there on our personal listings at Vettrus Crawford Realty, is I usually have in the descriptions, whether it's private remarks or public remarks, sell is contingent upon seller finding suitable replacement property. And that's simply because I've discussed with the seller, hey, what's your next step? What's your next move?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's, we don't have money to do anything until we get paid, or we need to have an accepted offer on our replacement home in order to move out of here, because at the end of the day, we don't want people being homeless, right? There's no fun in being in the dark. Now, there are some personalities where I've asked, I say, what's your plan? And they say, you know what, I'm just going to go where the road takes me, and it's a free spirit way of thinking. And there's nothing wrong with that. And ultimately they end up renting out an
some
apartment,
people don't mind doing that.
or a duplex, a half of one, and sitting there for 6 to 12 months until they figure out really where they want to be, whether it's in state, out of state, or if they even want to reinvest their money somewhere else.
I've seen a lot of sellers move into their trailer, like travel trailer, just while they're in between. Too. We see people move in with family. Like there's so many different ways to go about this. And obviously working with so many different clients, we see so many different scenarios and situations. So there's a lot of options when you're buying and selling at the same time. And there's, you got to just find out what works best for you and what you can do with your finances. So is there anything else that you really feel, I feel like today was kind of short and sweet, but
I do want to remind people though, when you see the word contingency online or something, that does generally mean the home is no longer available for you to submit an offer on.
Right.
But if you are seeing, when you are viewing the home on the seller side, it's contingent upon them finding a replacement property.
Right. Not when it says contingent on finding a replacement property. That doesn't mean that. But so that's the thing with contingency. Like that one word can mean so many different things. You need your interpreters, your realtors.
But it just depends on if you're a buyer viewing today's show. If you see the word contingency or contingent right to purchase, that generally means it's no longer available for you to submit an offer on. Because I think that's really where I deal with a lot of that word. And it's people asking me, hey, am I able to go view this home? And generally I look it up and it says contingent right to purchase or first right of refusal, for instance.
Right.
That means it's not an available home to purchase at this point. But my tip for you, and this is what I was starting to lean into, was if it says that, it doesn't mean it's a done deal. Because like I said, there's in order to move on, there has to be a performance made, whether it's selling a property, buying a property, or just passing an inspection period. So make sure your realtor who you're working with, if you do not have one, please contact us. We are happy to help you anytime, any place, anywhere. Okay. That's just what we do. And we're those nationwide brokers. We have these YouTube channels for that specific reason. If you don't have an agent in your area, contact us. We will connect you with a qualified agent that fits your needs. If you're here in Oregon, come talk to us. We will get the job done for you.
Yeah.
But make sure your agent you're working with is following up on that address. And that's something I really feel like a lot of people drop the ball on. And it's because when I'm in these real estate transactions and there is a contingency involved, usually the buyer having to sell in order to purchase, say it doesn't go through, well, ultimately I need to have a backup offer, but it's coming back to the agent that circled back around doing their due diligence for their client and saying, hey, is this home still available? This is what we're willing to submit. And they keep it all verbal until the moment happens to get their client in and under contract, because that is what our jobs are as realtors. That's another performance that you ask, well, what am I paying you for? If it's a buyer, it's absolutely free. It's just working with an experienced agent. So go use a buyer's agent to represent you in any real estate transaction. Yeah. I could not imagine not using a realtor when purchasing a house. It just feels like I'm missing out on possibly tens of thousands of dollars at times, whether it's negotiations, knowing the process, but ultimately finding the deal that everybody's searching for. These buyer's agents, they're sometimes can be dogs.
You would think you're missing
good at
out.
Negotiating.
Right. Yes, negotiating's huge. Legal representation's huge. Also just the feeling of like, am I missing out? Because the websites I'm looking at could be not updated. Like it's definitely a must do.
Absolutely.
Working with a real estate agent. So, okay. Like I said, we will chat very, very soon all about contingencies, going more in depth on like how to successfully buy and sell a property at the same time. We are dealing with that in, multiple ways with multiple clients right now. So, thank you for hanging out with us. I hope that whether you are a home buyer or wannabe home buyer, home seller, or even a real estate agent, that you somehow grabbed value from today's video. We come on here every week and talk about real estate. So if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the bell. Head over to our channel. We have all kinds of playlists that you might find valuable, and we'll see you next week.